Hello YouTubers, this is Patriot coming at you. It's kind of unusual way for me to start a video with this preamble, but since YouTube took away my music, so we're just going to jump right into it. Behold, today's video is going to be a bit different than our usual mantra routine, and hoping y'all out there excited for this fresh perspective. So, I thought it wise that this topic needs to be covered, and I don't know why. Might be because I'm a strong-headed. Haha. So, in this particular review, which I'm trying something new, as many of you know, generally I don't review models of 1 to 100 scale. As we all know, predominantly I demonstrate models of 1/72nd scale. So I'm switching things up a bit in today's video, so I thought it wise to review them, and I think they deserve some attention in my collection. So today's I'll be reviewing some of the models I have in my collection of mainly 1 to 100 scale models, particularly from Gemini Jets line, which I'm a fan of, and also showing you some of the attributes that Gemini Jets has brought to these models in terms of details slash accuracy, etc., and why it is important for every collector to consider add those to their collection. Um, I do have several of them in my collection. I was, just very impulsive about collecting them. uh, I think they're very, very nice looking models. Now, I will say, don't be concerned since there were no introductory footage. I'll try to do my best to, to do some particularly closer footage here so you guys have an idea about the model, but we'll do that later. But do note that taking my camera off of my tripod, you might guys experience some shakier movement going on. So I do apologize on that in advance. So let's begin, shall we? So this right here is the C-5M Super Galaxy. So this particular model from Gemini Jet and 1/200 scale line. Also, this particular heavy lifter is based out of Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. And as per usual, folks, we're going to talk about the some of the history facts about the this aircraft, and which is the C-5M Super Galaxy. And by the way, folks, I don't call this big bird the C-5M Super Galaxy. I call it the flying warehouse. It is such a massive in size. Anyways, so the C-5M Galaxy is a modernized version of the legacy C-5, designed and manufactured by Lockheed Martin, and currently the U.S. Air Force owns and operates, I believe, 52 C-5s. So the mighty Lockheed C-5 Super Galaxy is a heavy intercontinental range strategic airlift plane that is used by the United States Air Force. It is the largest aircraft in the U.S. Air Force inventory. The Lockheed C-5 Galaxy. It is the largest also transport aircraft in the U.S. military arsenal, and also is one of the largest aircraft in the world with ability. I want to say this aircraft can easily swallow a 50-ton main battle tank. The Galaxy is an essential part of the global logistics system. Um, an Air Force historian, John Leland, also noted the C-5 symbolized the size and the majesty of the United States Air Force, and it still does to this day. For the half century, the Galaxy kept the American armed forces and other allies well supplied, and uh, most of the remote corners of the earth, and will continue to do the job for the feasible future. I've seen this aircraft in real life, folks. It's a humongous. It's hard to wrap your head around the this aircraft, the sheer size of this aircraft. So speaking about some of the dimensions about the C-5M, it's 247 feet long, and uh, I'm trying to think here for a second. I think it's 12 feet longer than the Airbus A380 Super Jumbo, which is the civilian jetliner. Also, it has the wingspan of 222 feet. We're talking about uh, with each wing longer than the size of the basketball court. Also, this aircraft stand nearly 65 feet tall, which I think that's equivalent to the six-story buildings. This aircraft is so galactic, and it won't fit in inside many hangars, and in some cases, arguably most of the time, sits outside. The aircraft was built to carry more cargo than any other plane. This aircraft can lift more than 250,000 pounds and approximately 34,000 cubic foot cargo bay, which basically large enough to contain one tank and six helicopters. The aircraft able to fly, I want to say 5,500 with the 100,000 pounds of cargo without refueling. And with mid-air refueling, the C5 has a practically unlimited range. So, what was the whole idea to build large transport aircraft? The C5 started with the requirements. The United States Air Force basically wanted the transport capable carrying all the equipment necessary for the U.S. Army divisions, basically halfway across the world, while the transport of the time was, we're talking about the C5, excuse me, C-130 Hercules and C-141 Starlifter were kind of big, but simply couldn't handle, the most important items, such as I mentioned, the M60, the main battle tank. The M60 basically was 30 feet long and 10 feet high and weighs, nearly 50 tons. Further, the U.S. Air Force issued requirements for the super, heavy transport plane, basically to set performance goal to carry over 100,000 pounds with distance of 4,500 nautical miles and also with the speeds of nearly 500 knots. The plane that could do it would be not only the largest aircraft in the U.S. Military service, but the largest airplane in the world. Basically, was a heady time in American history when the country basically can fund a race to, race to moon. So during the Vietnam era and the Vietnam War, and trying to accomplish in building large airplane, so Boeing, Douglas, Lockheed compete for the contract after 6 months of deliberation. Well, Lockheed basically won the contract to build 58 cargo planes. On the other hand, General Electric wins the engine contract. And also in today's dollar, the C-5M would cost, I want to say, 268 million for each unit. So Boeing proposal basically didn't go waste. Would have eventually became a 747 airliner. Well, the C5 basically at the time was an ambitious aircraft. C5 was, could fly 5,300 miles, and that was enough to fly from, I want to say, from Dover Air Force Base in Delaware to Tarragon Air Base in Spain, or from Travis Air Base in California to Yokota Air Base in Japan. And the C5 was projected to fly with more cargo. And in 1965, General Howard Estes, basically, he was the commander of the Air Force Military Air Transport Service. He said that the C5 would have radically sped up the Operation Big Lift and exercise to flew 15,000 plus soldiers from U.S. to Germany. Also, the C5 able to land on the unprepared airfields, which basically no longer than the 4,000 feet. And also, Lockheed, they call this aircraft the Behemoth Galaxy, and indeed there are only 56 uh, C-5s still flying to this day, and many of these aircraft being upgraded to the C-5M standards upgrade with the new 138 commercial engines, basically with the increased power for fuel efficiency and reliability. Also, it's been modified to autopilot, flight deck. Then it's been modified with the new GPS systems and laser inertial navigation systems. And the other thing, folks, this aircraft is projected to remain in service until at least 2040s. So, speaking some of the features about the C-5M Super Galaxy, it is more reliable and it's more maintainable than the previous models that I've mentioned. It also has a longer range and can carry more cargo over longer distances. Uh, the C-5M, to be accurate with the numbers, I don't like to get in sometimes in accurate numbers, folks. But I'm trying to do my best on that regards. So maximum takeoff, I believe, is 840,000 pounds, including 270,000 pounds of cargo and 330 something pounds of fuel. That's a lot. So the C5 Galaxy has been used also in a variety of purposes. And basically, this aircraft, seen a military operations in conflicts such as Vietnam, Iraq, Yugoslavia, and Afghanistan, basically providing a relief for U.S. troops and other allies, and also distributing humanitarian aid. And also, this aircraft did support the space program. The other, key points about the C-5M Galaxy, this aircraft uh, has a, uh, loading entrances. Basically, excuse me, right here, we have this thing lift like a visor, and we have the aft. So, yeah, so the C5 has a landing, loading and entrances at both at the nose and the tail of the aircraft, allowing for drive-through loading and unloading of the cargo, meaning vehicles and large items can be driven directly into the cargo bay from either and simultaneously. This is a unique feature of the C5 aircraft. Double doors, basically, both the nose and the tail, uh, have large, wide opening doors that can be open at the same time. Drive on ramps. Each door basically has a full width ramp, that allows, for easy access for vehicles and large cargo. Basically, design enables the C-5M to transport large items like tanks, armored, personal carriers, and multiple vehicles at once. Um, so, folks, let me give you guys some closer footage here. So, as I mentioned, folks, you might experience some shaky or movement going on here. So here's the model, folks. Gemini Jets, they did wonderful job, modeling this C5. The paint scheme, it's proper, which is the gray, and all the letterings, the tail insignias. I like the engine details, so which I'll talk about it. And so you may notice also, folks, um, I have two fighters right here, two aggressors. So on the left we have the F-16D. Basically, this is from Eielson Air Force Base. This is from 18th Aggressors, Blue Foxes, with the had a very unique Arctic camo. And then on the right, we have the F-35. This is an A model, Lightning II. This is, I believe, from the 65th Aggressor Squadron from Nellis Air Force Base. And yeah, so, well, the reason I have those here on the shot because it's just to compare. So this, the C5, um, let me put this camera back here on the tripod. Excuse me, folks. So to compare, to the C5 Galaxy, fighter jets are significantly smaller with a, typical fighter jet, being, roughly one third the length of the wingspan of the massive cargo plane. Essentially a fighter jet, could, I would say, comfortably inside the, cargo bay of the C5 Galaxy with the room to spare. And if we compare the tail assembly of the C5, looks like it could be a small fighter, right? All of on its own. The C5 Galaxy, it's one of, as you guys see here, largest military aircraft. So, folks, with all that outlined, so now let's shift and move on to the next section, which I know this video is, we went too long, so I do apologize. So I'm going to give you guys an example of some of the attributes that Gemini Jets offers in terms of detailing, or, so speaking about the details of Gemini Jets. So Gemini, for example, they did a wonderful job on this C-5M Super Galaxy. So first pros to look at is the overall the shape of it is extremely close to the actual airplane. Uh, Also, folks, the shape of the wings, control surfaces, the glass cockpit. You would expect to see on the C5M and other details such as the engines, the labelings, the registration numbers, the tail insignia, as well as the small details on the front nose. All of that done really well. Again, I'm impressed with the engine details, the turbine blades inside General Electric, and also the proper finish on the aft of the engine, which is basically the exhaust himself. Uh, I don't know if you guys can pay, close attention to the mark and collision lights. Even the antennas are modeled really nice. The landing gear on this model are, detachable. So you guys, can display with the landing gears retracted or extended, depending on your self preference. Also, this model does equip with the very robust stand made out of metal, which has to be because it's such a heavy model. So again, all these small details are added, accurately, and and that really shows that Gemini Jets really care about their outputs, and they deserve some props, some credit for their intention to detail. And not to mention, folks, these models, as I mentioned, they're extremely heavy. And I'm not trying to be accurate with the numbers, but I want to say this model weighs easily about 6 to 7 pounds. It's pretty big and heavy. When I bought my first, C5M Super Galaxy, so out of the box, the first impression were I was feeling like I was carrying some kind of brick. It gives me that feeling just because they're such a heavy, which it's really gives you a sense of top-notch quality. And also on the box says, I'm not quite sure. It says Las Vegas, Nevada, so I think they're made in U.S. legitimately. But like I said, I do note if you're willing to collect few of these, once you plan to put them, on top of the shelf, make sure that shelf it's really solid. Otherwise, the weight of these, as I mentioned, they're pretty heavy. So you don't want to come home and find your shelf collapse, and all your models, on the floor. Yeah, trust me, it won't be a good day for you. And they're not cheap by any stretch of imagination, folks. And some of these older models, specifically, in terms of availability, sometimes can be a little dodgy. So, you know, um, excuse me, pardon me, I had to take a little swag here. So, for some collectors out there, I had some discussion with some collectors. They think about what they think about these 1/200 scale, either from Gemini or from Hogan or from other manufacturers. And they think they're small in size, not much of a detail, etc., etc. I want to say that they should ponder to add few of them, to their collection. And trust me, you'll see the first impression after owning few of them, which really makes the ownership of these 1/200 scale models really enjoyable. And this statement, I'm making, which I'm not speaking about, advertising or being sponsorship by any vendors or collectors or being biased towards any specific manufacturers. However, whatever you guys, hearing in this subject, it's just based on my experience, and that's all there is to it. Right. And like I said, I do collect, from Gemini Aces line, and also Hogan Wings and few from Herpa. Regardlessly, the vast majority of my collection are from 1/72nd scale. Take that accent from Hobbymaster, Caliber, Century, among other manufacturers, and of course, all in 1/72nd scale. But as I mentioned, I think these 1/200 scale models from Gemini Jets, they deserve some love and some credit. In every collector's collection is basically considered important within the model airplane collecting community, because it offers basically a high level of detail and realism, and also the manageable size. For some collectors out there, they have a very limited space. It is a it makes it a really great choice for collectors who basically also wants to showcase a diverse range of aircraft and liveries and airliners, with a focus on the accurate representation of a real world planes. So I totally recommend to add 1/200 or 1/400, whatever scale you prefer. And if you have any observation or important notes, please feel free to leave those comments on the appropriate section below. So, with that, thanks for watching. And if you want to show your support to the channel, I would say by subscribing. That's the only way. So by doing that, basically will tell me that I'm doing a good job so I can improve and reiterate my videos, right? Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you in the next episode.